welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Samuel, founder of a revolutionary medical sales training and mentorship program called the Medical Sales Career Builder, and I'm also host of the Medical Sales Podcast. In this podcast, I interview top medical sales reps and leading medical sales executives across the entire world. It doesn't matter what medical sales industry, from medical device to pharmaceutical to genetic testing and diagnostic lab, you name it, you will learn how to either break into the industry, be a top 10% performer within your role, or climb the corporate ladder. Welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. And remember, I am a medical sales expert sharing my own opinion about this amazing industry and how it can change your life. Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Samuel. And today we have another special guest, and he goes by the name of Christopher Price. Christopher Price is a medical sales professional that has found a way to make finances easier for medical sales professionals. But I don't want to spill the beans. This episode is exciting. If you care about your money and you want to make more, this is an episode you absolutely have to listen to. But in addition to that, I want to share with you something that we're excited to also talk about, and that's an upcoming event we're going to be having January 25th in the new year of 2025. This event's going to have a big ceremony for all of our graduates from the Medical Sales Builder program. I'm going to be there being interviewed as the CEO of Evolve Success, and we're also going to have a panel that's going to include VPs from companies like Johnson & Johnson, high-performing sales reps, coaches, graduate students from our program, clinical specialists, and many more. This is going to be a star-studded event at a place called Herb and Wood in San Diego, a high-end restaurant where we're covering all the food, we're covering all the alcohol, and we're inviting you to come and celebrate with us, have some fun in the Evolve Success community. So again, that's January 25th. Details will be in the show notes, and I really do hope you enjoy this episode. Who are you? What do you have now? And then take us to when you first got into pharmaceutical sales. And of course, we'll go back and forth, but just at least who are you and what are you doing now?
Yes, so I absolutely will do that. Again, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I'm very grateful for the work that you do and for the opportunity to be able to share with your audience. And what I like to tell people, Sam, is that when I introduce myself, I tell them my name is Chris Price. I'm a pharmaceutical executive by day, but I'm a real estate investor by night. And the story goes, I've been in pharma or in the broader life science industry for over 20 years, working in various different roles and functions, from sales operations to medical affairs operations and working with medical science liaisons, to marketing operations, where I spend a lot of my time right now leading functions around content excellence and doing all sorts of great projects and doing different things that make an impact on patients. But along my journey, what took place is that I actually started to get more and more involved and interested in how can I build and protect my wealth as a hardworking professional. Like many people, like you and many people in your audience, we work hard for our money. And while we're working and making an impact on the lives of patients, we also need to be paying attention to how do we make sure that we can set up ourselves and our families for generational wealth as well. And along that journey, my wife and I in particular, we started to get exposed to different things. Me, for example, I started to really gain an interest in real estate investing. It kind of came a little bit happenstance. I was one of those people who, we were starting a family, and the house that we had was going to be, too small for us to raise that family. And so we started to take a little bit of a picture into, hey, we need to be moving up. But when we moved up out of that smaller condo that we were in, we moved into our single family home, we actually ended up holding on to that condo, and we became what they call accidental landlords. But something cool happened in that process, where essentially as we were renting it out, we were getting a little cash flow after all the expenses were paid. And we're like, okay, this is something, but we didn't really know much about it. Fast forward years later, think about things that were transformative throughout our careers, right? Things like the great financial crisis in 2008, the European debt crisis in 2013, all of those things, watching my 401k and all of our investments in the stock market go through that roller coaster ride was something that was very, let's just say we weren't necessarily interested in that, and we didn't have the control that we wanted to over our future. But we then started to realize and recognize that, hey, this little condo that we have is kicking off a few $100 of cash flow every month. What if we got smart about that and built a strategy around that? And that's
Yeah.
sort of where the real focus around building our interest in real estate investing and what we're doing today has gotten us. So I tell people that I do
So,
both, and that's basically what I'm up to today.
okay, so as a pharmaceutical sales professional, what is your title, and what is your responsibility now?
So today, in my pharmaceutical role, I work actually in the marketing operations function for a top 15 pharmaceutical company, privately held pharmaceutical company in the world. And my role is focused around content excellence. So many people in our industry, in the broader life sciences industry, whether that's in medical sales or in pharmaceutical sales, are familiar with the fact that the content that you use to communicate with your customers, the physicians, the support staff, nurses, PAs, etc., that content has to go through a review and approval process. I'm responsible for that review and approval process for the therapeutic area vertical that I'm responsible for, and making sure that that content, whether that is the commercials that we all see on television to the advertisements that our representatives have in their on their iPads today, what used to be the visual aid that they were carrying once upon a time,
Mm-hmm.
all those things, the flashcards that patients see,
Mm-hmm.
consumer brochures, you name it, all of that stuff needs to make sure that it is consistent with the regulations, that it is legal, and that it's medically accurate. And so, and from an operational standpoint, that it's meeting all of our operational rules. And so that's what I'm responsible for in my day job, as in my career as a pharmaceutical executive, and what I am super passionate about those things. And I should say that, of course, and nothing that I say today is official, content from the company that I represent, or from the company that I work for. I'm just
Of
here
course.
sharing my own personal views and opinions.
So you say, so you're in compliance then, or you're actually creating the marketing content?
No, I'm in operations actually. So I'm in operations. There's an operations function that is responsible for facilitating this process. So we work with marketing. We work with our sales teams to get this content out to them. And then of course we work with all the other functions to help make this happen. So we work with regulatory compliance, we work
Sure.
with legal, we work with the medical experts internally to make sure that all that content that goes through that ultimately ends up out in the field goes through the review and approval process to make sure that it's medically accurate, it's meeting our legal our laws and regulations, and that it's compliant.
Okay, so then take us back to when you were a representative, or did you start as a representative?
I started actually in the sales operations team, supporting our representatives. So working with on all of the systems, setting up the meetings, all of those things. That's really where I started and cut my teeth in support of all of those functions, and how and it's been a journey from an operational perspective, working on that side of the house and with our field force to be able to support them.
I want to go back to where you started. So, how did you take us back to college? You graduated in what, and you stepped into what space?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I went to Marist College, which interestingly recently made an announcement that they're changing their name to Marist University. It's a small liberal arts school in upstate New York,
Okay.
in Poughkeepsie, New York, as a matter of fact. And I was recruited there to play football and Division I football. And so I went there. I had a great time at Marist, where I was a standout student athlete. I was an All American in my senior year. And in fact, Sam, what I'll tell you is that I with my dream as a kid, like many kid, was to go out and play pro football,
Oh, okay.
and I gave that a shot. But all the while I was in my undergraduate, I actually was doing all of my internships at the drug company that I work for today, in fact. And I got a chance to get exposed to so many different things. So when my football career was over, I actually was able to make inroads there, and get brought on as a contracted employee. I started out as a temp working in our medical organization, working with our
Whoa,
med.
whoa, whoa.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So wait a minute. Wait a minute. First of all, we can't glaze over your football career.
Oh
That's
yeah.
number one.
Oh yeah.
And number two, we will step into exactly what you're doing. So take us back. D1, uh, you know, did you actually play pro ball or what happened there?
No, I didn't. So, in fact, I did not make it to the pros. I tried out for many different teams as a part of my journey, going through and going to regional combines. And what one of the things that I tell people often when I tell the story of my football dream, or my dream to play professionally, is that this experience was the best experience to find out how good I wasn't. And what I mean by
I
that
like
is
it.
that when you're seeing how talented you think you are, and you
Yeah,
go
yeah,
out and
yeah,
you
yeah.
see some of those guys, I can assure everyone that's listening that the people that they're watching on Sundays, these are some of the most elite athletes that they'll ever
Mhm.
see in the world. And I had that experience directly, going to some of these regional combines, going to tryouts,
Yeah.
waiting at the end for my name to be called up, hopefully on the good side of things, that I'll be called back for practice, or to make a practice squad, or sign a free agent contract, only to be hearing my name on the bad side of things, that, hey, thank you for showing up and giving it your best, but you're not getting called back. And
So
those were
what?
sobering moments.
Yeah, I can imagine. What position did you play?
So I was a running back in college, and a kick returner, and so that was what my focus was actually going to be on when it comes to playing pro ball. I wanted to go out and play running back. In fact, one of the things that I tell people, my two favorite football players of all time growing up as a kid, one, Walter Payton, one of the greatest running backs of all time, and the other, a little bit more recent, in the early 2000s, was Marshall Faulk. And so I tried to
Mm-hmm.
mirror and model my game after as a hybrid of those two guys. And like I said, I had such a great time playing. My senior year, as I mentioned before, I got named as an All-American. This was a great opportunity. I think that was it's obviously it's an exclusive group for folks to be a part of. But what was cool about it is that it gave me an opportunity to then use that as a part of my resume, to then broker these tryouts, and work to make my way to the league. And while that didn't happen, it was, in the end, I'm one of those people. All things work out for a reason. It did
Mm-hmm.
land me in the space that I was able to start to take those steps, and make a decision. Do I want to continue to pursue my athletic dreams, or do I want to start to pivot and explore other opportunities in the industry that I had been interviewing in, or excuse me, I should say, in the industries that I had the opportunity to intern in over the course of my undergraduate time, and that was the decision that I made.
Okay, so so you tried out for pro. How does that work anyway? Are you like in your senior year and you're doing this, or is it after college ends, or when are you actually doing this? And then I guess I want to know how long did that time take, and when did you finally make the decision to step into the business of medicine?
Yeah, so this is during my senior year. So imagine, in your senior year, while most kids in the spring, they are getting ready for graduation, going to all the parties and doing all those things. And while I did some of that, part of my
Hmm.
routine and preparing for trying to play professional football was actually, trying to be disciplined, eating right, trying to continue to exercise. And one of the points of feedback that was given to me on my journey when I was coming into this space was actually, Chris, I was a little bit lighter, and if you will, from a weight perspective. And so they were encouraging me to bulk up and put some pounds on. So I spent
Sure,
time
sure.
lifting and getting getting bigger and stronger. And as a result of that, I got a little bit slower than what I typically was, but I got bigger and stronger, and took carried that weight. And so during the spring, is prior to graduation, that was what was my focus. Lifting, going to training sessions, practicing with other players that were also exploring, trying to play professional, and doing different pro days and those types of things. But that ultimately led to, after graduation and throughout the summer, me spending time going on the road and going to different regional combines. A regional combine is where some of the NFL teams in a particular region and their scouts and other staff actually host an invite session for players who didn't get, or who didn't get drafted, who are talented, but they want to give them an opportunity to showcase their skills and all of the different things, whether that's
Mhm.
running and passing and receiving and agility drills and strength drills. And I was invited to one of those, to a couple of those sessions in the summer, after I graduated, and after failing twice or three times, in two different combine sessions, again, it started to become real to me that this was something that was maybe not in my cards and not likely to happen. And did I need to start thinking about going a different way with respect to my career aspirations? And that's kind of how that whole journey got started.
Now, did you meet someone? I mean, I remember you saying in college you were already doing internships in
Yes,
college.
yes,
Were they sales? Were they Salesforce, like commercial internships? Were they operations internships? Were they marketing internships?
yeah.
What kind of internship were you doing in the med tech companies?
That's great. So this is a great question, because so I had an opportunity to, throughout my years of undergrad, to explore the pharmaceutical industry from different aspects. So I actually interned, 1 year in the research and development function to support some of the scientists that were doing work there. But then fast forward, my last internship, and where I really cut my teeth, was in the sales, training and development
Okay.
function and sales operations. So imagine, me in my senior year of college, or excuse me, my junior year of college, going into my senior year, my internship was actually focused on, all things related to, supporting the sales force, their educational materials, the meetings that they're having for POA meetings, and getting ready for different product launches, and bringing them in for their different training
Sure,
sessions, and all
sure.
of those different types of things was part of my work as an intern. And so in that time, one of the things that was really beneficial for me is that I didn't just waste my time there doing what was asked of me. I did more than what was asked of me. I went above and beyond. I spent time getting to know the people in the office and building relationships and networking, and getting exposed to other opportunities. One, in part, that's part of my personality, but two, I think it also was a great opportunity for me to be able to, just showcase my skills, and express my interest in what was going on around there. And I think that actually helped me, not think, I know that that helped me in positioning myself, so once I was done with my football career, that, to in terms of a short list of places that I would reach out to get into the workforce, this would be one of them.
What was the first role?
So in fact, before, I had an odd job while I was doing my training sessions and combines, throughout the summer, after graduation, and when I was going through all of the different scouting combines and training. I actually, my job, I was working at a small retail store in a local town in Danbury, Connecticut, where
Mhm.
I grew up. And in fact, after that, once I first got into my first role within the pharmaceutical industry, and what led me from that small retail position to the pharmaceutical industry was an opportunity, that came up, that I applied to. And it actually started with a new organization, a new function that was starting within this drug company, that was starting a new medical science liaison group. These are for those who don't know, the medical science liaison, think about them on the opposite side of sales, in that they're not selling a device or a therapeutic, they're actually selling the science behind it. And so their particular role is having scientific interactions with these external experts who are influential based on the research that they do, based on what they publish, etc. And I was working in the operational support team for them, or that's the role that I ended up taking on. And from there, started my pharmaceutical career in the operations function, supporting this new emerging group in this company, and then being able to start scaling and building my career from there.
Got it. So, okay. So you were working at that retail store. You already had the connections to pharma. I guess you heard about an opportunity to get into the sales operations.
Yep.
You took it.
Yes.
You got the job, and now you're officially a pharmaceutical sales professional.
Yes, I'm officially. In fact, I'm a pharmaceutical professional because I'm not just working with sales. I'm also working in the medical side of the house as well. So I broaden it to not just supporting the sales force, but also
Sure.
supporting the other functions as well.
So how long have you been in operations versus anything else in in
Yeah,
pharmaceutical medtech?
yeah. So I've been in the pharmaceutical space in total for 20 years now. And in the operations space, I've spent the majority of my career in operations in various different operational functions. As I mentioned, I've spent time in sales operations, I've spent time in medical operations, and now most recently, my career over those 20 years has led me to the marketing operations function, and what I'm doing now, as I was explaining before, around making sure that the content that our field teams have out there is meeting the needs of our customers.
Sure. And just so we're clear, your title is what exactly?
So my title at the drug company that I work for is the director of content for the therapeutic area that I support, which is ILD, or interstitial lung diseases, and respiratory. And so I'm the lead for my particular therapeutic area, and within that function, there are other stakeholders, other peers, I should say, that have a similar role to me, but in other therapeutic areas.
So do you have a team or do you pretty much work solo?
Yes, I actually have a team. So I have a team of individuals that report into me that support the day to day activities that are required to facilitate the review and approval process and other content related activities for this particular therapeutic area. And this is for the portfolio of brands that fall within our therapeutic area. So our team is divided out and structured in a way that provides some balance to the that workload, so that they're able to help with managing the operations of those things. And our responsibilities include everything from, like I said, facilitating the review and approval process, to focusing on different efforts around projects focused on personalized content, to be able to deliver content to the right customer at the right time,
Sure.
at the right time. This is something that's very much a focus of us, to all things related to launch excellence. So think about when you have a product launch, whether you're a medical sales professional on one side of the house, or you are a pharmaceutical sales professional, when you are getting ready to go out there and make calls to your customers, you need that content that's going to help to inform those customers around why your product or service is something that they should be considering to prescribe or to use in the surgery session, or to prescribe to their patients for whatever reason. And when it comes to the work that we do, all of that content has to be reviewed and approved. And so I
Right,
drive
right.
that process for my therapeutic areas.
Got it. And so you're in the home office or do you work remotely or how does it work?
Yes, so I work in the home office, and we have some folks that are in the field, but our role in particular is focused on home office activities. So the good thing is that we have a balance where we're able to do some of our role remotely, while the major on occasion we are in office to make sure that we have those moments that matter with our colleagues internally.
All right, so let's jump to boost my capital, and what I really want to get into is so you're a pharmaceutical industry professional.
That's right.
You have a full time role. You did something that everybody does, which is secure your home for your family. You happenstance discovered on becoming a landlord. When and how did you morph that into an official business that
Yeah.
ultimately became Boost My Capital?
Yeah, so I love this question, and what I'll answer it in this way. So along my journey of growing up in the pharmaceutical industry, I spent time doing what many of us do in pharmaceutical and the broader life sciences space in medical sales, etc. I got advanced degrees. I have a MBA in healthcare management. I have I'm I have my master's in applied project management. I have I'm a Lean Six Sigma green belt, and all of those things and along those times were all things that I wanted to invest in myself from a professional and a formal perspective, to make sure that I can continue to not only demonstrate in the work that I was doing that I was qualified to continue to take on positions of growing responsibility within my work. I also wanted to be able to continue to bolster my skill sets and my expertise in the operational space that I was in. And so I invested in myself and all of those things. But one of the things that I tell people that is there's a guy named Jim Rohn who I came across in my journey here, and he talks about the idea of a formal education being something that will help make us a living, but a self education, investing in ourselves. For the people who are listening to this podcast, they are investing in themselves. Those types of things will help make you a fortune. And I started to do that. And so when I was learning about when we became those accidental landlords, I didn't really think much about it until a few years later, until we had those very impressionable experiences with these different financial events that were happening that we didn't have control over, and we wanted to have more control over our financial future.
So
and,
let's
and
let's 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 get more specific.
yeah.
So what was happening? Take us there.
Yeah,
What was really
what was
going on?
specifically happening? This is
Mhm.
a great question. What was specifically happening was, me watching my, what I was told, and like many of us are told, is that the way that you have to get ahead is, hey, you go to school, you get a good job, and when you get a good job with benefits, and hey, take advantage of that 401k. And these are all the things that were in my mind. I was wired that these are the only ways to wealth building, and until I learned specifically that this isn't the case. And I learned this because I was watching my 401k look like a heart rate monitor. When, one week I would look at it and things looked like they were performing well, where the next day or the next week I'm looking at it and things are tanking. And when it comes to being able to support our financial future and having more stability and control around those things, I wanted to make sure that I can focus on doing something that I could have more influence and control over. And that's where the real estate started to come in. I started to look at different ways in which people build and protect their wealth. It's not a secret that in the United States, especially, many people, real estate is one of the there are a few key ways that people build wealth, right? It is you start a business and you build that business, or you invest in real estate. Some people may or may not get wealthy in the stock market today. I guess a lot of people talking about crypto, but I'll talk about specifically one of the most common ways that people in the U.S. have become wealthy was real estate. And from my risk tolerance perspective and my expertise, and the fact that I own some real estate, some rental property already, that was the area that I chose to focus on to be able to start to build and scale my portfolio.
So I want to take it back to, first of all, I want to stay on your job. You
Yeah.
have this job. You're doing it full time. And then life is happening. Life is
Yes,
happening because you got some property, you got to get your family to a bigger place to take care of them better, and somehow you keep this property and you decide to rent it out.
that's right.
I kind of want to know, when did you say, hey, we should buy another one and we should do this over and over and over again? What happened that even was it a video that you watched? You talk about Jim Rohn, and I know Jim Rohn because I'm a huge Tony Robbins fan, and Jim Rohn trained Tony Robbins. So did you stumble upon a YouTube video and you said, we're going to buy another property, or what happened to take you to a bigger interest in going this direction? I hope you're enjoying today's episode. And I want to let you know our programs cover the entire career of a medical sales professional. From getting into the medical sales industry, to training on how to be a top performer in the medical sales industry, to masterfully navigating your career to executive level leadership. These programs are personalized and customized for your specific career and background, and trained by over 50 experts, including surgeons. Our results speak for ourselves, and we're landing positions for our candidates in less than 120 days in top medical technology companies like Stryker, Medtronic, Merck, Abbott, you name it. Would you run an Ironman race without training and a strategy? You wouldn't. So why are you trying to do the same with a medical sales position? You need training, you need a strategy, and you need to visit evolveyoursuccess.com, fill out the application, schedule some time with one of our account executives, and let's get you into the position that you've always dreamed of.
Yeah, Sam, that's exactly what happened. It wasn't a YouTube video. In fact, my first entree into this was a podcast. There's a podcast by a guy named Keith Weinhold. And Keith
Okay.
Weinhold was talking, he had a show called Get Rich Education. And in that show, he was talking about investing in turnkey single family rentals. And I was like, what is that? And is this something that I could start doing? And I started to research more and more. I couldn't put the podcast down in the journey of listening to the podcast where he's talking about building a rental portfolio of single family rentals. I actually also started building my plan out specifically around that, and I got the bright idea that to my wife, I said, hey, look, we already have this property and it's kicking off some cash flow here. What if we put together a plan that we could, a financial freedom plan, if you will, that we could actually, identify how many single family homes we would need to replace our earned income from our jobs. And then at that point in time, we would be financially free because the income from those properties would cover off on all of our expenses, living expenses, and all the things that we wanted to do. And I put together that plan for around how many single family homes we needed. And what I discovered at that time was that it was going to take way too many single family homes and way too much time to be able to
How
get there.
many? How
So
many? How many single family
yeah,
homes?
for us at the time, we're looking at somewhere along the lines of 50 single family, 50 single family homes. And it was going to take us we had a plan to get there in about 10 years. And
Wow.
we
Okay.
said to ourselves, we got to find another way. That's going to take too long,
Sure.
and it's going to take too much effort for us to get there. What's another way to do that? And I wanted to add this point, and you mentioned YouTube or videos in particular. In that time of listening to Keith's podcast, of course, that brought me down the rabbit hole. I started listening to or reading books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I started getting exposed to other things and video content that was starting to introduce new concepts to me that I wasn't familiar with, but I became very interested in. And that's when I actually, in one of Keith's interviews, he was talking to someone who actually was talking about investing in passive real estate syndications. And at that point in
Okay.
time, that blew my mind.
Passive real estate. I don't even know what that is. What is a passive real estate syndication? Please
So
educate me.
this is exactly what I said too when I'm here. I'm like, what in the world is a passive real estate
Sure.
syndication?
Sure.
So in short, a real estate syndication is just simply investors pooling their money together to buy an asset larger than what they would be able to do on their own. So imagine. Imagine you're in your neighborhood. You probably, in addition to the residential, single family residential homes that are in your neighborhood, you probably are familiar with all the apartment complexes that are around there. Those beautiful garden style apartment complexes with the pool. They got the dog park on there. They have all the different amenities there. People pool their money together to invest in these types of properties. And instead of doing that on a single family home, if you think about it, instead of that, they're just investing in someone else's opportunity, which is the syndication, and then they get to share in all of the proceeds from that, the cash
So,
flows, tax benefits, etc.
so it sounds great, and I know a lot of these. In fact, a lot of people have approached me with, "Hey, we got this group. We're buying all these properties. Invest with us, and we can take you places." And then I've heard of people doing that and it not working out so
Yeah.
well. How do you know who's legit, who's not? What makes sense? What doesn't? What guides you?
Yeah. Well, I would say this. First, everyone has different reasons why they want to get into this. I think that's before you even get to who to invest with. You need to understand why you're investing. For us, our point of view, for my wife and I, was focusing on building generational wealth. We were focusing on diversification of our portfolio, not having everything that we earn in the stock market, those types of things. And so once we figured out our why, that's when we started to look at the different ways that we wanted to get into these things. And what one of the things that was important and that we learned through this process, and as I was going through it, was that it's something called due diligence is really important. And what I mean by that is being able to check out the people that are making these offers to you. Who are they? What's their background? What's their track record? What experiences do they have? These are all very important things to be able to learn and understand before you one would go and explore getting into those things like references, very much similar things to what anyone getting into the medical sales space. Before you join that company's doing their due diligence. They're interviewing you. You're going into those interviews, you're bringing your best self. That's all fine and well, and then after that, if they're confident that you're the guy or gal, they're going to start to pick up the phone and make some, hey, what about this
That's fair.
person? All those types
Mhm.
of things. It's a similar concept when it comes to who you invest with from a real estate perspective.
So then, would you say that there are maybe three principles when anybody approaches you, or when you're looking for a way to be a part of a syndication to invest in property, that you should always be on the lookout for, or it doesn't really work like that? And you just have to dig into what they're doing and hope their due diligence finds anything that could be wrong.
Yeah, there definitely are some keys to be able to
Okay.
focus on. So I talk about what I share with people when they're asking me about things to consider when it comes to investing in folks. You want people to really be focused on the track record of the investment group that you're deciding to partner with. How many years of experience do they have? What is their assets under management? What is their knowledge of the market that they're focusing on? Again, we focus on specifically we focus specifically on commercial multifamily asset classes, but many people are getting exposed to different things. There could be self-storage, it could be retail. It's important to understand, do these people have the focus and the knowledge of the asset class that they are introducing to you? And then beyond the knowledge of their background and experiences and on the marketplace, you also want to know, what does their portfolio look like? How is it performing? You mentioned earlier, some of the investments out there may not be performing. Some of them may, but it's important to ask those questions and to make sure that you're getting honest answers around those things. Of course, like all investing, has risk, and real estate is no different than that. What's important for investors to recognize, and the third thing that I like to talk about is when you're questioning these investment groups, ask them what are some of their ways in which they are helping to mitigate some of the risk that exist out there. What I mean by that, when it comes to things like financing, we've heard a lot about interest rates. Interest rates affect real estate a lot. Ask questions about the interest rates that exist out there, and what they're doing in those types of things, as an example.
Okay. All right. So you said you're in commercial multifamily asset class.
Yes.
Again, what exactly is that?
Yes. So, what I'll describe it this way. So many of us listening may be familiar with those shows on HGTV where there's a fix and flip. And if you think about it, what we do with multifamily, commercial multifamily, is like a fix and flip. But instead of a single family home, we're talking about these apartment complexes that are typically 100 or 200 units, and we are doing things that are improving that property. We're making renovations to that property where we are improving the appliances. We're painting it. We're improving we're adding amenities. We're upgrading the pool. We're adding new services. Those types of things to help make improvements to that property. And then we're also doing things like reducing the expenses on the property as well. And just like in a single family home, that you can imagine, when you do this to 100 or 200 units in one apartment complex, this can have a dramatic impact on the income that property can generate. And the idea behind this is that is basically the big payoff. People receive monthly cash flow distributions from the income that the property is generating, but the big payoff actually takes place when the property is sold 3 to 5 years down the line, when the project is completely executed. At that point, investors are able to take advantage of the sales proceeds from the property. So just like you were selling, if you were to sell your fix and flip property and you get the money from that afterwards, you're getting your proportional share of those proceeds from the sale of the property once the project
Sure.
is over.
And your company owns these properties.
Our company is actually an investor in these properties as well. So what we do at Boost Capital Group is we are able to we raise private equity, private capital from private investors. So individual investors like you and others to come and pool our money together. And because we can raise a substantial amount of capital from a number of different investors, that gives us the opportunity to negotiate with the actual operators or sponsors of these deals. And we can say, hey, because we are bringing $500,000 to your deal, or $1 million to this investment opportunities, we want to be able to enhance the returns for our investors. And so we can negotiate more favorable terms for our investors because of the amount of capital that we raise. In addition to that, many of these deals are called what they call them institutional quality deals. What I mean by that is that typically these deals have been exclusive to family offices and other large firms, and not letting retail investors into these, or making it very difficult for retail investors
Okay.
to get into
Yeah,
these
that
things,
makes
because
sense.
typically
Hmm.
the minimums may be $250,000, or 500K. But we have the opportunity to raise that capital and pull it together, and then we can set lower minimums for investors to be able to get into these deals and take advantage of these things. So that's what we do with Boots Capital Group, and we have a network of operators in the best markets in the country that bring us deals. We get a chance to evaluate these deals to make sure that they are aligned with our and our investors investment criteria, and those are the ones that we introduce to them.
So, what's the minimum for a retail investor to join your group? into these opportunities? What's the minimum?
Yeah, so if you think about it, for many of those in the medical sales space and the pharmaceutical space, we get the good fortune of making good living in the world that in the fields that we work in. And this is important. And while it's important to invest and do all these things, and folks focus on different types of investments in the stock market, some like I mentioned earlier, some people are and very heavy in crypto. So I'm also, what I talk to folks about is the importance of diversification and being able to diversify in real assets like real estate. And so minimum investments for retail investors like the medical sales professionals that we're talking to today typically would be about $50,000, $50,000. And that $50,000, as I mentioned, we it's all pulled together, and that's what we end up investing into these different real estate projects. And what I communicate to investors and lay out to them in detail is that the goal of our investment strategy is to help investors double their money in a 3 to 5 year time frame. So that means that $50,000 turns into $100,000 in 3 to 5 years, and that's a combination of the cash flows, their proportional share of the cash flows from the property, and the proceeds from the sales of the property.
Now, is this guaranteed? If I say, you know what, Chris, this sounds amazing. Here is 50 grand. I can't wait to see it become 100 grand in 3 to 5 years. Is that a sure shot? Is there risk? And if there is risk, what is the risk?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is the key question you talked about earlier, right, Sam? Like these are key questions that you want to be able to ask. So first of all, if you hear anyone say that this is guaranteed, run as fast as you can. This Nothing is guaranteed. Like nothing is guaranteed in life, and in this type of real estate investing, that also is the case. However, what I would talk to people about is that when the key risk, the most common risk that we look at and the things that we try to mitigate are three things. We look at the market risk, we look at the operational risk, and we look at the financing risk. So let me break down each one. When it comes to the market risk, we want to be you everyone has heard that old adage, location, location, location. Real estate and where it is and where it's located, what market it's in, is really important. And so we want to make sure that we're investing in the best markets to make sure that we're protecting from situations where it's not a strong market. Let's take, for example, and this is no offense to anyone that is from Detroit, Michigan, but we all know that in 2008, during the great financial crisis, because Michigan and Detroit in particular, their industry was entirely wrapped up in the auto industry, there was a lot of devastation there as it relates to job loss and economic loss, etc. And so we don't focus on markets that have, let's call them one trick ponies when it comes to industries. Now, of course, Michigan has evolved substantially since then. It has really diversified their economy to be across many different areas, and probably would be a very great place for people to look at investing. So market is one of the areas that we focus on. And in particular, beyond the location of that asset, we focus on key things. We focus on job growth, we focus on population growth, and we focus on the demand for housing. Because if that doesn't exist in the place that you're investing in, these are things that you want to be questioning. If the market is shrinking, that you got to question, do I want to be moving there, or investing there, or do I want to be investing to where the people are going, where the jobs are going, and where your assets have a likelihood of increasing in value. So market is number one. The next thing that I talk to people about is operational risk. So you asked a question earlier about the importance of due diligence, and how do you make sure that who you're investing with is the right person or the right team to invest with. And this is around the operator. So for us at Boost Capital Group, we partner. We First of all, we have a tremendous amount of experience in this space, but we partner with operators who are extremely experienced in this in the areas in the asset classes that we're looking at. In multifamily, for example, the people that we focus on, first of all, they have at least 5 years of experience of this type of investing. They have a portfolio of at least 1,000 units in that market that we are targeting. They have at least $100 million of assets under management in that market. So these are substantial investments, and that indicates to us that they have a tremendous amount of expertise and knowledge in that marketplace, and that they've been around the block a few times to be able to do those things. We also look
Sure.
to whether or not they've gone full cycle on a deal. What full cycle means is that they've bought, renovated, and sold the property at least twice. And that again shares with us that they know about all the
Ins and
different
outs,
ins and
right?
outs exactly. And so
Mhm.
that's what we focus on the operational side. And then the final thing that I talk about, well, before I go there, just let me say this. There can be people that are not very experienced operators, but bring you a beautiful asset and they can run it into the ground. And so this is where and why the experience is so important. So I would caution people to really pay attention to those things. Before I
Sure.
move on to the third, I want to make sure I can answer any clarifying questions for you.
No, no, no. Please preach.
Okay. The third option and final one that I want to make sure that people know is specifically about the financing risk. So I talked about financing risk in the context of everything that has been happening in the world that for anyone listening to the news or paying attention to the news, there's been a lot of discussion about things like inflation and interest rates. Well,
Sure.
the Federal Reserve controls the inflation, or helps to control inflation by the adjusting through the cost of borrowing through the interest rates. And so that the interest rates, when people were buying investments back in 2020 and beyond during the pandemic, their interest rates were super low.
Sure.
And during that time, people got into these deals. But one of the products that's offered in this investing space is something called a floating interest rate loan. Some people may be familiar with a variable interest rate loan. It's the same concept. And what that means is that that rate may be at 1 percentage point today, but it could change. It could go up. It could go down. Well, as the Fed increased the interest rates over the course of something like dozens of times in a 1 year time frame, that crushed a lot of people who had gotten those
Right.
deals. And so when you mentioned earlier, hey, people have gotten burned on these things, that is a truth. Okay, it's a real thing. And so what we talk about with our investors is not that floating interest rate loans are bad. It's that it's that the savviness of the investor or the operator that is getting into this needs to know something about something that's called a rate cap. And a rate cap is exactly what it says. It means that we can pay in advance to prevent our interest rate from going above a certain amount, to protect the investors, so that there's no risk of the interest rate getting so high that it burns the income of the property
Right.
and jeopardizes the investment. So it's those three things that I would tell people, that the market, the operations, the financing, all of those things. If those things are being done properly, this is going to help mitigate the risk and help make sure that this is a successful investment.
All right, got three questions, and we're going to bring this to a close.
Sure.
So, first question. So, if I had $25,000, can't help me. 50,000 or leave you alone.
So if you had $25,000, what I would tell you, I've had this conversation with many investors. While our minimums are $50,000, however, when we do understand that this is new for many people, private investments are new for folks, and they want to learn, and they want to learn perhaps, and sometimes 25K is a more desirable interest entry point, if you will, for people to learn versus 50K. For us, yeah, talk to us. We would be happy to entertain that conversation with you, especially for newbie investors. We know this. We have some newbie investors that are breaking into this, and we want to make sure that we meet people where they're at. If there's an opportunity for us to be flexible, we will do so. But at the same time and in the same breath, you have to realize that there is a tremendous. Oftentimes we have a significant demand for our investments, and you that we may not be able to secure a spot at 25K because people are coming in at 50K. But
Right.
if we
Right.
can, we will
Cool that.
certainly make that. We will certainly take that into consideration.
Very cool. Okay, so the two more questions. So the next question is, at some point you took a leap of faith and you got in with a group to kick this off and take you down the path of being able to start your own business in
That's
this.
right.
How did what gave you the comfort? Because you didn't really know what you were doing. So
Mm.
I'm sure you did due diligence, but you probably didn't know what due diligence really meant for your first decision stepping into this world. What gave you the confidence that this is not a scam? Whatever group you joined is legit, and you trust that the money you invest with them is going to take you further. How did you know you can take that leap? Or did you not know? Did you just gamble and you happen to win?
Yeah,
How did it work?
this is great. So you talked about it earlier, right? That videos. I started with podcasts and YouTube videos and reading every book and listening to tons of audiobooks. You name it. I was deep down the rabbit hole, and an important conversation happened about a year and a half into me doing all this theoretical work. Right? There was nothing. There
Sure,
was nothing happening. I was learning everything. I'm
sure.
I'm I'm sitting there, cooking dinner, listening to the
Okay,
podcast, and then going back and telling
okay.
my wife all the fun things that I learned. And then it came a point where I was doing this, and I had a conversation with her, and I would report back all the cool things that I learned. And she said, I hear that you're learning a lot, but what are you doing? What action are you taking? because
Yeah.
because you're talking, but we're not doing anything.
Our partners will always keep us accountable.
Oh
But go
my
ahead.
goodness. You're exactly right. And so that kind of checked me right there. And so that got me then interested and started to get a little bit more active. What did I do? I started attending meetups in person
Okay,
and virtual. I started attending conferences where I would put myself in the same rooms with these types of operators that do this type of business and start to build relationships with them. I set up time with them, spoke with them on the phone, met with them in person, met with them virtually in many cases because some of these
sure,
deals were done early in the pandemic.
sure.
And I started out, I would say for many people, I started out, for me, my journey was different from being, I started out as a passive investor. So I started investing in other people's deals. And once I started seeing it work, I was able to take advantage of some of those tax benefits that exist. I was able to see some of the cash flow come in, and I didn't have to do any of the work. I didn't have to be
Right,
hands on. I didn't have to deal with the
right,
calls
right.
that
It
I
was
was
all
dealing
happening.
with,
Yeah,
all that stuff. I was
yeah.
just seeing, I saw the amount of money hit my checking account in the
Yeah.
bank account that I set up. I was like,
You said this has
this is
legs.
this. This is it.
Yeah.
But
So
no, go
what
ahead.
was what? No, no, I don't want you to
No,
forget.
go
You said,
ahead.
but what?
No.
Okay, what was your minimum investment? I mean, yeah, what was your first? How much was your first investment?
My first investment was an investment in Birmingham, Alabama. Birmingham, Alabama is for some it may sound like, oh, why Birmingham, Alabama? Birmingham, Alabama has an amazing medical industry with UAB, University of Alabama at Birmingham. They have a really growing medical industry. Huntsville, Alabama, all those spaces, aerospace, all sorts of things that
Sure.
are emerging there. So the market was great, and my first investment, in fact, was a 48 unit property in Birmingham, Alabama, and my first investment was $50,000 in that investment. And so that was the first step. And of course, I've invested several other times from there, from very much from Atlanta, Georgia, to um, to parts of Pennsylvania, to Houston, Texas, and I've been able to diversify and invest in different deals throughout the market as a passive investor. And like I said, doing that repeatedly and seeing some of the results after I built some of the relationships that I built, that then led me to really being able to say, hey, there's something here. But in that space, Sam, what I was going to say is that this is where I started to realize that I like this stuff a little bit more than being a passive investor. And how could I get on the active side of this to where, since to where other people like me, I'm not the only person in the life sciences industry, whether that's in pharma or in medical
Mhm.
sales, that is interested in diversifying their portfolio. How can I get out there and help other people like me do the same thing? Which is why I'm so grateful to be on your podcast, because I get an opportunity to speak to me on the other side, and allow
Right.
people to hear something new. And yes, what we do in impacting patients is huge and what's important, but we need to be looking after ourselves at the same
Mhm.
time as it relates to how we build and grow and protect our wealth.
And that's perfect what you just said, because my last question before we do the lightning round was going to be, is your practice uh, primarily consist of all medical sales professionals, so pharmaceutical, medical device, medical supplies, you name it, or do you guys have everyone and also medical sales?
Yeah, it's more the latter. So of course I came into my partnership with Boost Capital Group with the track record and the connection to the life sciences industry and pharmaceuticals and medical device, etc. But my partners, they actually come from other industries. My partner, Jeff Rodriguez, he comes from the U.S. government. He was a former U.S. Marine and now works in the federal government.
Oh,
Um,
that's cool.
and then
Okay, so
my
yeah, all kinds.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
then my other partner, Philippe, he comes from the aviation industry, working on
Okay.
business jets. And so we complement each other very well, and we joined forces. And so what we talked about broadly is that we're helping busy professionals boost their capital through private real estate investments, and that's what our focus is on.
Fantastic. Chris, this was awesome.
Excellent.
Thank you for taking the time to educate us. And you've definitely piqued my interest. So if you piqued my interest, I know that our listeners are going to be interested as well. Where can people find you?
People can find me, in fact, they can find me at boostmycapital.com. But what I have, in fact, and I want to make sure I get this right, I have a free webinar that folks can listen to and watch and learn a little bit more for those who are interested in learning more about passive real estate investing. It is go to boostmycapital.com/investor dash webinar, and folks can go and learn a little bit more about this. And you can reach out to me. I'm on social media. On LinkedIn, I'm Christopher Price MBA. Facebook, I'm Christopher Price MBA, and I'm also on Instagram at the real Chris Price.
And all of this will be in the show notes, folks. So make sure you click the link. So we have one more thing to do, Chris. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
This is the lightning round. I'm going to ask you 4 questions. You have less than 10 seconds to answer each one. First question is, what is the best book you've read in the last 6 months?
Essentialism by Gary McCune. Fantastic book.
Ooh, tell me more. What's it about?
Essentialism is about all the things that we have in our lives, and how do we focus on what are the most essential things that we need to be focusing on. Think about all the distractions that you have and what you do as an entrepreneur, and as a medical sales professional. You have so many things bombarding you from all sorts of directions, but what is really important? Essentialism will help you figure that out.
Man, you've sold me on that. I'm going to check
It's the
that one
best
out.
book I've
Okay.
read in a long time.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Best TV show or movie you've seen in the last 6 months?
Whew, that's gonna be harder. I'm watching The Bear, actually with my wife, and this show, I gotta say, it started out
Fantastic.
slow, but it got really
Man,
good.
man, keep watching.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Okay.
fantastic. All right. Now you got to give us the location, the name, and the item Best meal you've had in the last 6 months.
Oh boy. Best meal that I had in the last 6 months is going to be, oh, it's going to be uh, Tao in New York City, because that's what's coming to mind. Tao in Midtown Manhattan in New York City. I had a sea bass, and it was glazed in an Asian sauce. I can't remember the name of it, but it melted in your mouth. Sea bass, fantastic. Highly recommend it for those people who are in the city or in the New York City area and want to get some great food.
Okay, that's happening. And last but not least, what's the best experience you've had in the last 6 months?
Best experience that I had in the last 6 months. So I have two kids. I have my daughter Zoe, who's 12 years old, and my son Caden, who's 10 years old. And I am a full soccer dad. And I enjoyed watching my kids play soccer all season and score goals and win games and lose games and be on the sidelines and living vicariously through them and that experience. For those of you who are parents who have kids that are playing sports, there is no greater joy than watching them go out there. I'm sure I'm laughing because I'm thinking about how my kids always are. They don't necessarily want to hear daddy's feedback at the end, but daddy has to do it because this is just who I am. My wife has tried to coach me out of not giving feedback immediately after the game and maybe waiting a little bit, but I can't help it. But that is so I get so much joy from going out there and watching them play, and I look forward to continue to do that even more.
Chris, that is beautiful. Thanks again for sharing with us. And we can't wait to see what you go on and do with Boost My Capital. And thank you for being on the show.
Oh, thank you, Sam. I appreciate being here. God bless and have a great rest of the year, and Happy New Year.
And that was Christopher Price. Fantastic stuff. Look, if you care about your money, then this is an episode you had to really pay attention to. What is the point of changing these patients' lives, working with these intelligent customers that are our physicians, making good money, being well compensated for the hard work we do, and then not knowing what to do with it? That's the kind of value Christopher Price has to give. So I really do hope you learned something. And if you didn't, then again, please go back to the beginning of this episode and listen to it again. In addition to that, January 25th, we're having our first live event for Evolve Your Success. This is going to be a star-studded event because we're going to be celebrating our graduates. In addition to that, we're going to be having a panel where I'll be interviewed, and VPs from Johnson & Johnson, executives from other companies that are startups, clinical specialists, high-performance sales reps, one of our own graduates in a star-studded panel to answer your questions. This event's going to be at a place called Herb and Wood in San Diego. The address and phone number and all the good details will be in the show notes. And most importantly, we're covering everything. All you got to do is show up. We're covering the food. We're covering the alcohol. We're covering anything you want. We even covering the entertainment. We want you to come and network with us with Evolve Your Success, have an amazing time, celebrate our wonderful graduates, and learn something. So I look forward to seeing you January 25th. And as always, we do our best to bring innovative guests who are doing things differently in the medical sales space. So make sure you tune in next week for another episode of the Medical Sales Podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember, I have a customized and personalized program that gets you into the medical technology industry as a sales professional, or any type of role for that matter. Become a top performer in your position and masterfully navigate your career to executive level leadership. Check out these programs and learn more at evolvesuccess.com by visiting our site, filling out an application, schedule some time with one of our account executives, and allowing us to get you where you need to be. Stay tuned for more awesome content with amazing interviews on the Medical Sales Podcast.